All of us know Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Apple. Those are global players and those are American global players. Now, there's a continent with twice as many people as North America. That's Europe. We are 500 million people, but in 28 countries with 24 languages, so maybe that is a puzzle that is frightening some people. There is a European ICT industry, but it is only 20% of the world market, which is why today we talk about what it takes for European information and communication technology industries to grow from their countries into their continent and how to conquer the world. We have a few European champions. Ericsson is a Swedish global player in mobile networks. We don't have the phones anymore, but they have all the technology that makes our phones work. Arvato is a German hidden champion in network integration. For search engine, we all know. For a social network, we all know. And for an airline, we all know. Every one of you gets in touch with Arvato 8 times a day without knowing it. So today you meet the guy. mediaTest Digital is a German startup that needed only 1 million to make a security app for you or your company that protects your smartphones from downloading malicious apps that would, for instance, spy, and you don't want that. The European Commission's Director General for Enterprise and Industry is developing a policy on digital entrepreneurship and the digital transformation of industry and enterprises. So, we invited them to find out together how more European ICT companies could become global players. Please welcome Ericsson's President of Western and Central Europe, Valter. Please welcome Arvato CEO with 60,000 employees who you meet 8 times a day without really knowing, Achim Berg. Please welcome the European Commission's coordinator of the digital entrepreneurship strategy, Eleftheriadou. And the co-founder and managing partner of mediaTest Digital, Kai Haller. Guten Morgen. Good to have you here. What is the potential for Europe, Mr. Ravino?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I mean, I can talk a couple of hours if you want about that. But let's try to get straight to the point. I mean, for sure, when it comes to the ICT industry, for many reasons, and it's not useful to go back to this reason, we are lagging behind some other continent. But ICT has been always the engine and the boost for the GDP. So the GDP has been based upon the ICT industry. This is a substantial part of the growth of the GDP. It can be 30% in the past, it can be 60% in the future. So ICT can be really the way of reconquering this leadership in the future. The world is changing in a profound way. We are talking about a net society in 2020. Someone else is talking about Internet of Things. What we are talking about is 50 billion of devices that will be talking to each other. It's not only the refrigerator, because someone is saying the refrigerator is going to be talking to each other, but it will be even cars talking to each other. It will be even a sensor on your skin that they will be communicating with each other. So we have to prepare ourselves to go in that direction, to transform the industry, and this could be done in Europe by using, for example, technology, by using 5G, by using the next generation of telecommunication. This means to go from short-term to long-term vision, perspective, horizon.
We go more into detail. Let's have an opinion by Achim Berg. Where is the potential for Europe?
This is what I think a couple of weeks ago, we had the national summit, IT summit in Hamburg. And Tim Höttges was on stage. He said, we lost the first half like a soccer game, 3-0 in Europe. We lost the first half because the US and China are much stronger than we are. If you see our DAX, our most important companies in Germany, I think the youngest DAX member came late 70s. It was SAP, as I'm right, maybe 70s or 80s. We always live from the success in the past. We have nothing new. And this is a big risk for the next years. All these mid-sized companies, especially in Germany, they were all founded in 70s, 80s, and they're growing now and growing. They're up there at their high, and we have nothing new. There's nothing which is coming, and this is a big risk for us, for all Europe, not only for Germany.
Dana Eleftheriadou, where's our potential?
There is a huge potential in Europe from digitization. Digital transformation is already there. It changes the way we live, we work, we communicate, we entertain ourselves, and it changes the way we do business. Now, a lot has happened already, and several industries, let's say, have lost the game of the digital transformation. Look at what happened in the music industry, the photograph, Kodak, etc. The question now, I believe, for Europe is very critical on how not to allow other industries, especially the manufacturing industry, that is very strong in Europe, to not allow losing the digital transformation game and start all speed ahead to catch up with this game. We, in the European Commission, we are very sensitive on this issue. As you know, there is a new commission that's just taking office, is 25th days in office right now. And the new President-elect Juncker has digital at the center of the new policy guidelines for the next commission for the next 5 years. So the connected digital economy, the connected digital single market is the #2 priority in the new political guidelines, immediately following the #1 priority for growth, jobs, and investment. So with this, you can understand how strongly political is the subject now, which demonstrates that we, European Commission, but also together with the member states, have to pass a strong political message and encourage you, businesses, enterprises, on the way to digital transformation. Thank you.
Kai, what is your idea? How could Europe be better for a young entrepreneur like you? What future do you see for people like you and your friends who would start up? Before you answer, there's a little technical thing. Yes. You have a switch here.
And that's the reason why.
And if you can try that, it may get a little higher.
All right.
Good.
And
very interesting.
You'll be sitting a little higher.
Thank you very
That
much.
looks better, so you don't disappear behind your tables.
Okay, yeah, thank you. First of all, I agree with my colleagues here on the table. But I think startups in Europe generally will have a very, very bright future if we just focus on what we can do. Yeah, we have here a good base of manufacturing services and manufacturing sectors, and for the startups, it's up to drive smart technologies. Yeah, and we have the people here. We have the framework here, the political framework. We just have to do it. We have to believe in ourselves.
So Europe is strong in the classic manufacturing industry. The world drives our cars. The world buys machines to produce more. Will we always sit on that success? Or how is that success of the manufacturing industry in the future depending on ICT? Would you like to react?
That's no question. You always live through innovation. Of course, we can. Best example is Kodak or other companies. They completely fail. You can fail so hardly and it's so fast if you don't innovate yourself or reinvent yourself all the time. This is for me no question. We have to do this. We need more innovative products. We need to go with these industries. Even if we have a strong industry, for example, car manufacturing. It's no question for me that we are very strong, especially in Germany here. So we talk Europe, but we are very strong there. But without this constant evolution, or sometimes revolution, we will fail. This is no question for me, and I think it's no question for anybody here on stage.
Yeah. No, there is no question about that. The important formula is that we have to go out from the vicious circle of the efficiency and go into the circle of the growth. That is, again, from the short-term horizon to the long-term horizon. I mean, in the future, ICT will be the platform for all these manufacturers, as you have taught about that. I mean, automotive, we will be based upon ICT. I mean, we are experiencing some kind of good stuff with Volvo. I mean, it's not a chance, it's a Swedish company. But I mean, we are doing, connecting all the cars one each other already today. I mean, we are doing experience with the vessel that are managed by a central place, and they are just controlling all the ships around the world. We are doing a collaboration with Maersk in Denmark. There is an experience of power, how to control the power, how to control the electronic measures and electronic counters in your home, and how to control all the power, especially in a period of time when the power is becoming a very precious asset, if you know what I mean. So the merging between the manufacturing and the ICT is fundamental for the future. So from one end, from efficiency to growth, on the other hand, to try to expand in this direction. ICT platform for all the manufacturing.
Daniel Eleftheriadou, this is your field in the European Commission, right? The digitization of the classic industries. Describe your work. How do you try to support them?
Right. First of all, I would like to underpin how important is the manufacturing industry for Europe, indeed. Europe has a leading role in manufacturing since years. However, can we just contemplate and sit on our success? No, as you very well said. Actually, Europe is losing ground on the industrial manufacturing phase. There are already countries like the UK and France who have lost substantially their manufacturing part and their participation on global, on GDP. Our target from the European Commission in the latest communication on industrial policy, the so-called industrial renaissance, we have set a target. And the target is 20% of GDP should be coming from manufacturing in Europe. We are not
20%,
there.
you said.
20 is the target.
Okay.
Yeah. We are now at 15% and on a losing ground phase. So how can we make it happen? Our way of thinking currently is digitization can live. It's the only fact that can provide a solution. The digital transformation of existing companies, the Internet of Things, as you said, the ICT will be cutting across all manufacturing sectors, will changing, will make them more productive, but will also create new business opportunities for newcomers, for even small enterprises that will be finding business opportunities, for example, by the exploitation of all the big data that are being created by the cars we are driving or different other solutions. The idea then is how to maintain manufacturing in Europe and how to maintain the new business opportunities that are created around manufacturing also in Europe. And there are a number of steps that we are thinking of changing or of improving in the European environment. This is, of course, the environment, the regulatory environment. A small and medium enterprise that starts a business now has to, and goes online directly. Online, by nature, means global, pan-European at least. However, the reality today is that they have to deal with 28 different set of rules, from consumer protection, from data privacy, from taxation, and those all are heartless for the small businesses. So, although we do not have the solution, we are thinking very much in consultation with the business people, with the academia, with the member states, to find a solution that would combine all interests. Consumer rights on one hand, but also giving the opportunities to the businesses to flourish and start and grow in a single market. And this will be very much the agenda of the Digital Single Market Package that President Juncker and Vice President Ansip has announced for the first 6 months of 2015.
Mr. Davino, you are a European company. Do you encounter those difficulties with the 28 countries, the 28 legislations, and the 24 languages? What would be your wish the European Commission could help companies like yours?
Of course, we are present radically in Europe. We were born in Europe around 150 years ago. We are investing more than 60% of the research and development in Europe. So 5 billion, this is our $5 billion US is our investment in research and development in all over the place. 60% of 5 billion, 3 billion is invested in Europe. Of course, we are dealing with different laws, different regulation, different spectrum. That's fundamental problem that we have in Europe, the fragmentation. I mean, we as a Europe, We have thousands and thousands of history and culture that we shouldn't renegade. So that's the advantage in respect of the rest of the world, especially when it comes to US. But on the other way around, there is a fragmentation. What I feel more is the fragmentation from the spectrum viewpoint. We need an harmonization from the spectrum viewpoint. Spectrum is the oil of the 20th century, because without spectrum, we cannot go for example, here in Germany, there is this plan to go for 50 megabytes per second to all the population in 2018. That's the ambition of the government. But in order to go there, 50 megabytes in downloading for everybody in 2018, we need more spectrum. You have in Germany this undisputable occasion to free now the 700 megahertz in 11th of December. That will be a deliberation from the community in order to say, let's go for 700 megahertz. So giving the spectrum to the operators, industry is fundamental, because without spectrum, we cannot reach the mobile broadband, we cannot reach the transformation we were talking about.
Mr. Berg, what would, react?
I have to pile on here.
Of course!
Yeah, yes, of course I have to.
You have to do something.
No, I don't have to do it. But it's by the way, I totally agree. It's a spectrum. The other ones, we have 200 telcos in Europe, and we have just a handful in the US. To move from one place to the other in the US is quite easy. I lived in the US for a couple of years. It's super easy. In Germany, we have all this protection, we have the different spectrum, we have the regulation, all this stuff. We don't need 200 telcos. We need one, and we don't need roaming. It's always, it's so complicated. If you travel around Europe, it's so complicated. This is something makes it much easier for all of us, makes it much easier for the startups, much easier for you. They have the same, but this is something we need to work on. And this is, I guess, I'm sure it's something is in your hands, I guess.
This was prepared, this kind of answer.
Of course.
We are acting as twins.
Well, I've got a very concrete example as a consumer. Visiting my friends in Switzerland for the weekend, the most expensive part was actually the phone bill a month afterwards, because whoever called me in Switzerland and talked on the phone was really expensive on my phone.
Yeah.
Well, now I've got a European flat rate. That makes things easier. But when I open my laptop in France or in Switzerland and I want to watch Amazon Prime or watch ever, they tell me I'm in the wrong country.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can't they? Do you think it's a commercial decision, or is that a field where European legislation could interfere and say, hello, if you're selling video streaming in Germany, why don't you offer it also in Basel?
Yeah. It is in the agenda. This is called geo-blocking, so it is blocking different consumers or businesses according to their geographic location. We believe this should not be happening. So it is in the agenda of the digital single market. Of course, I cannot say how this will be resolved. We have to take all the interests into account, but it is among the things that should not be happening, we believe. The same about spectrum, as you mentioned, telecoms, single market for the telecoms. Full complete implementation of the single market for the telecoms is also in the agenda for the next 6 months.
Let's have a quick poll in the audience. I'll ask you a question, and it's a yes or no question. That means that in the 20 seconds to come, you will have to lift your arm once. Okay? So you'll have to lift your arm anyway, which means that you might just as well lift it the moment when you think, this is me. Now the question is your business hampered or obstructed by the borders within Europe? Say yes, or if you say, no, I'm happy, I can sell whatever I want, wherever I want, and borders don't bother me, you say no. Who says, yes, there's obstruction?
Should we vote as well?
Who says, no, I'm fine, I'm getting across borders anyway?
I'm listening.
Well, some do. How do you do this? Where's the microphone? Let me ask you one question. And she has a microphone.
That's the best stuff to be minority.
You're happy with the borders in Europe and they're not in your way?
Not I'm happy, but I'm satisfied. Happy is more, but you see, this is working. I'm from Cologne, we from Cologne, we learned, supported by Bitkom, you had to find the solution. It could be better, but it's always complaining and saying I'm not satisfied. This is not a solution. In the Trend Congress, from my opinion, is proving that we are on the right way.
Thank you. Now, who raised his arm and said,
yes,
borders are in my way? Were borders in your way?
Well, we have problems to sell our software in different countries because of different regulations, and it should be cleared in a very easy way, I think.
Thank you. If you try a wild guess, how much more business, like how many percent more business and more domestic product would be possible if the majors' business frontiers were flattened? What's a wild guess? Do you dare a guess?
Maybe they have done some estimation about that, so she can have
It's not me personally, but we have done a guess.
smart
indeed.
answer.
So the official numbers is 250 billion euros more growth would have been created in Europe if we achieve the digital single market. The digital single market doesn't mean only telecom single market, but means that businesses, as you say, citizens can do business in the whole single market, in the whole European market, without impediments. Free flow of information, free flow of services, free flow of data. So 250 billion euros in the next 5 years.
in the next 5.
Okay.
So 50 per year. 50 per year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions to that subject right now? In the next half hour, we will talk about what it takes for startups to have better conditions. Before that, I would talk about, do we need more big industries or do we need more startups? How important are big industries that we already have on the national level or maybe on a multinational European level? And is it important to foster those established ICT industries? What do you think?
But if you would like to really have the vision of 2020 at the network society, we need both of them. Because if we are building a society where there is a lot of, let me say, industry that are using ICT as an engine, you need a lot of application developers. You need a lot of small applications that are using this kind of stuff. So it's not only the transport and the big, let me say, company that needs to produce, investing and producing this kind of word, but you need on top of them, you need the application developers that are using, as from the application, very agile, very consuming very limited amount of money, but they can produce a lot of application all over the place. I mean, let's think about how the taxi driver, they have been using the current technology. So now there is a lot of discussion about this taxi driver. I do not want to enter in these polemics, but at least we have to recognize that it has been injecting and inducing a lot of good thinking, a lot of thinking at least. So there is a space for the application developers in order to build up upon the networks, if we are going in that direction. But we need to be leader in Europe. If we are not leader, if we keep on being followers, this will not create money at that level and even at the application developer level, because other guys will come and will use it.
Okay.
I think the question is not relevant. Every single big company was a startup sometimes ago, of course. This is the one thing you need. And the second one is, if these big companies don't reinvent themselves all the time, they will fail anyway. You need this. For example, the companies which came up the last 5 to 10 years in the US, Facebook, Google, Twitter, or you name them, Airbnb, Uber, whatever it is, they're worth over $1 billion. They didn't exist 10 years ago. They are quite new. That means it doesn't matter if you're a big company or a small company, you survive if you have the right ideas. Very simple. And this is where we're failing at the moment in Europe, to come back.
The right attitude is fundamental, but just for sake of discussion, Ericsson is existing since from 150 years. So, I mean, at least we would like to assist other 150 years, by the way. So let's be trying to transform ourselves as well.
What is the last, you mentioned Google, Facebook, Airbnb, eBay, all those modern companies that are American. What is the last European company that you remember that was new at a time and even went to the stock market?
I'm not sure if it went to the stock market. I think SAP was the last one in the DAX. I mentioned it before. But the last startup in Germany I'm aware of, I think, is Skype. And I guess this was an accident.
I think it was, wasn't it Luxembourg?
Yeah, maybe, yes.
Yeah?
Maybe you're right.
Was only Luxembourg?
Yep.
Yeah, but maybe they were Germans.
But it's a few ones. But if you, the big one, I remember Skype, but this is 15, 20 years ago. It's owned by Microsoft now. This is the last big startup from Europe I'm aware of. Maybe you know more, or you know more.
Because we are follower, we are not leader.
Huh?
Pardon?
101.
101.
Yeah,
Yeah.
101. 1 and 1.
Yeah, but
Eins
still
und
it's
eins.
not easy to remember.
It's
It's
one
not.
and one. It's 1 and 1.
Yeah.
Who did essentially invent, in the using of internet in a very early stage. They did survive, the first gap, and now they are able, to buy Rockwell shares, which is a good proof. Anyway, I wouldn't do it, but it's proving they are rich.
Yeah.
But it's not easy to remember the name of the company, as you said.
Yeah,
We are trying to
It didn't
elaborate.
come to us,
It doesn't
didn't
come up
to
to mind.
Yes. I found it interesting that you said that even the big old companies that are not old anymore, because they're of course rejuvenating themselves every few years, they need like oil, or the small companies that invent faster and are closer to a market. So big companies also need startups.
Yes, and the other way around. And the other way around.
And the other way around. Okay. So now we come to our startup culture. Let's have Kai tell us his experience. What does your thing do to my phone, and whom do you sell this to?
I would like to start with a question to the audience, first of
Go
all.
ahead.
Who's sitting here who has also running a startup? How many young entrepreneurs are here?
1,
2,
2,
3.
Really raise your hand, otherwise we don't see
5.
it.
Don't be shy.
And
Yeah.
that's definitely too less. When we just rethink what we were talking about the last few minutes, that we say we need a combination of old companies and young startup companies, because both of them need each other. 5 startups here is just too less. But come back to your question. What we are doing, we secure and manage the app usage of smartphones from companies. Because when you rethink 20 years ago, you had your computer, you had your desktop on your workplace, and it was completely regulated. Yeah, they told you which software you can run on that. They told you what you have to do with this computer. And now you have smartphones, and now you have tablets and everything, and it is totally open. It is totally open. You come from your private usage, and nobody told you guys privately ever what you can do or can't do with your smartphone. You just download any app you want. And now you have those smartphones running in the companies and tablets, and you can't do that. You can't download every single app on this device, because you have very sensible data on these devices, like you had sensible data on your desktop PCs 20 years ago. And that's what we are doing. We're securing these information on the mobile devices.
How many people are you?
At the moment, we are 30 people.
And you set this all up with how much money? What was your first investment?
Yeah, we built it up from scratch.
Yes.
We invested our own private money.
Yeah.
And when we were running or starting the business, at this time there were non-budget at all in the companies. They all opened their doors and said, oh, that's a great idea, but just come back next year or whenever. We are not so far at the moment. We got, after 18 months of pitching, we got a first investment.
How much?
Which was around 1 million euros.
Okay, you set that up with 1 million only. Now you come to, and you already sell to companies your product. Companies are already using
Yes,
that.
of course.
Now you're at the stage where you would roll out and get bigger. How easy do you find it to collect the second bunch of money to get bigger and conquer the market, the second round? How much would you like?
First of how much would I like? Well, I won't tell at the moment. more than in the first round. Well, it's definitely easier to collect money in the second round than in the first round, definitely. And if you have a good track record,
it's not easy, is it?
the magic word is break even. If you go break even very soon or very fast, you can collect some investments. But you are limited if you're just watching in Europe. Yeah, you have to watch overseas in the United States, because the investments in Europe are pretty small. Yeah. The risk behavior of the investors is not as high as in the United States.
I get to you right away because I see you want to react, but I hear someone talking in the first row. And that must be so exciting that I want to give them a mic and say, tell us.
No, we had a short discussion about our business.
Okay.
Yeah, but we are only a German company from DATEV. It's a cooperative of the tax consultant profession, and it's only working in Germany.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Berg, you wanted to react to this startup culture we have, and the challenges they face.
You mentioned how to finance, how you get money, raise money. This is the most complicated. It's quite interesting. I met somebody yesterday in the discussion we had. He told me he met Andresen, and I think everybody knows Andresen. He's the key investor in the valley. And he said, "Can we talk?" And Andresen told him he's based in Germany. As long as you are not based in the Bay Area, even don't talk to you. Quite simple. Even I don't look at you, but I don't talk to you. Either you move to the Bay Area, or we don't talk. This is just the behavior, and we see the money is, even if you see I think to raise the first money, the first million, sounds easy, but to get another 5 to 10 million sounds very complicated, because everybody's asking return on sales. If it's not within 3 years, you're not interested anymore. And if you even look at the German startups who raised 5 or 10 million, this money is not coming from Germany. It's not coming from Europe. It's coming from the US or sometimes Asia. This is what I'm hearing all the time. This is not German money, because we don't invest in these. This is maybe the biggest problem. Therefore, I believe you. It's quite hard to get money.
I totally agree.
You have examples for that. Just quickly add the examples. What is the music streaming software from Sweden?
That is Spotify.
Spotify. Where is so idea, Swedish. Money, California.
First, I think some little money Europe, and then big money from California, of course.
For the second round. Now, what was the other software where musicians can upload their work?
That was SoundCloud. Also Swedish. Yeah.
And the major investment?
Of course, from the United States, yeah.
And then there's another example from Hungary, I think it was.
Yeah, that's
who produced something that may replace.
Does everybody know Prezi? That's a presentation software.
You know it.
Of course.
They just raised.
I thought everybody would know that.
Yeah, they just raised last week 56 million US dollars, of course, from 2 big American investors. And they just spent this 56 million dollars just on brand building and marketing.
Yeah.
Just to push this brand, and they can see what's the strategy of the American investors is. They want to push it, and either they want to do a big exit, or they want to bring the company to an IPO. And that's what they are really pushing with kind of money investing in marketing and everything like this. I don't know if you agree with me, but the big money is there.
Go ahead.
I would have to.
Sorry, but we need to ask ourselves why it's the case. Yeah, why the Europeans? Because there's a lot of money in Europe. There's not we're running out of money. It must have a different reason. Either we don't believe in it, or we don't see the success of the European startups. Maybe that's the reason. Or there must be another reason why we don't do this. And maybe there's many. It's not one reason, but there are many reasons. Why is the US investing? I think one reason is a simple. It's not a simple one. The startups in the US, like the Facebooks, Google, and the one I mentioned before, they reinvest in other startups. We don't have these young startups who have the experience. Therefore, all traditional companies, like we work for, sorry to say that, 150, 180 years, we don't invest millions in startups. We have sometimes a fund, but we don't invest them. We look always return on sales, what is the OPEX, how can we make, what is the multiple? We look completely different. And I'm guessing the Facebooks and these, they don't do this. They just invest in 10 and hope that 2 or 3 survive. That's maybe one reason out of
But now,
50.
in a certain extent, these people that were youngest or they were startup, now they are the giant of the investment, if you allow me to say that. Because in reality, they are buying a lot of companies as well. So they were a startup just a few years ago, but now they are the giant that are spending a lot of money, even too much sometimes, in order to buy any other company. So it's a lot of chain that we have to think about. I mean, we, in our small environment, we have bought a company, for example, here in Germany, 30 people, very small one, called Geos, is maybe looking like a startup. It was a very, let me say, knowledgeable people, and we bought them. But of course, the issue is that, as he was saying, what is the real return on sales? I mean, what is the horizon that we are talking about? Because their business model in US is to start up, to take the money, and to buy a new company. That's what they're doing. So it's a the life cycle is like this. They are repeating themselves.
Right, yeah.
And we are not replicating this kind of model. We are just looking for the first time, but we are not replicating the model in a certain way.
And we have to think that Europe has another culture. You know, we are talking all the time about investments and venture capital. There's also some other dimensions which are important for us, because if we, first of all, Europeans have not a big risk behavior like the Americans do. They say, okay, I want to be successful, and I try everything, yeah? Then we have, of course, the society. If you fail in Europe, you are failed. Yeah? People are scared of failing in society. And so, of course, they don't have a high-risk behavior. There's 2 dimensions, and the third dimension is our education system. Everybody tells me, my parents always told me, okay, go to school, make your German Abitur, do a training. For example, it's the German word for Industriekaufmann, yeah, and then study. And you will have for sure a very, very good job in a very, very cool company. But nobody tells me, do this, because then, with the education, you can get a very, very successful entrepreneur. Nobody tells us that.
It's going to be changing now.
Yeah.
If I can challenge you, but it's going to be changing.
Perhaps I'm old-fashioned in this time. My parents told me this already, but I think the younger entrepreneurs in Germany or in Europe will do this. But this is a cultural thing, you know, and we have a total different approach here in Europe.
Let's get to education right away and to entrepreneurial education. But before, let's spend 30 seconds on the idea of risk. If you go bankrupt, you are a failure, and your neighbors won't even invite you to a barbecue anymore, and your and your friends will say to their daughters, don't marry that guy because he's the son of that failure. Who of you thinks that this is a current opinion in Europe? Okay. And who of you would think, well, if you go bankrupt, that means that you were quite daring. You were really taking a risk. So next time you try, you'll have more experience. Why don't you just go on? Who of you thinks that this was the major opinion in Europe?
No one.
One. Okay. We have hopes, 2. We have hope. Good. Maybe this is something we can change.
But it depends even on the country you are talking about, because I'm living in UK, I can tell you. In UK, this mentality is much more advanced than in the rest of Europe.
Okay.
I can tell you.
In UK, you can go broke and get up again.
I thought in Italy.
And in Italy as well.
Now, we go back to education, but I was just thinking of, dare something new, have an idea, and tell everyone. It's something that happens with individuals who found a company, but it can also happen inside a company. Now, I wonder, what do you do inside your company, Arvato, who has 60,000 people who get in touch with me 8 times a day, and I didn't even know it? Strange company, interesting, but how do you get your people to come up with an idea and get something new and propose something? Because when I'm number 5 in the hierarchy or number 12, do I walk up to the boss and say, yeah, I got a great idea, we should do it this way, this way, this way? How great is the chance that someone is going to go to me like, it's not your business down there, go back to your desk? How do you do that in your company?
I didn't ask you for the question, but I like this. What I did is, 6 weeks ago, I asked for an innovation and sponsoring program, and I asked everybody in the company, all the 66,000 people, if you have a great idea, bring it up on a one-pager. And what happened is, after 6 weeks, we got 101 different ideas, and we voted last week with the board, and we look at the best 11, and we voted for 5. We're going to invest 10 million. Just as a startup, which is quite new. But we did it the first time. The success is unbelievable. The whole company is talking about innovation, thinking more innovation. This is just an idea. This was a program, and we do it every year now. Of course, you need innovation in a structured way, but this unstructured way helps you a lot to create more, to think about ideas. And I don't tell you the ideas we had last week because too many entrepreneurs are here in the room, but it's a few good ones, really good ones there, I never had thought about before. Therefore, you can do, even at a large company, you can bring this innovation spirit into this company.
And
Go ahead.
I think that's a great idea, what you've done there in your company. I think we have the potentials in Europe there, yeah, but we have to find a better system to identify the potentials. Yeah, we have to. The people are here, the education is here, everything is here, but people don't get out with their ideas out of their heads. You know, bring the ideas out of their heads, and you will see there will be some great companies growing up. That's my belief, my opinion.
There is one thing that we are doing that resembles to me something that is interesting. We have identified in our company the so-called young advisors. So we are selecting high talent people, very young, so they are completely different perception from me that I'm very old, for example. And we are using those people in order to challenge us. I mean, we have this circle of people, they participate, for example, some projects, and they're just giving us completely different flavor from the traditional way of doing stuff. This is the way of challenging the leader, the managers, the people. So these guys, 28, 29, 30, 27, they are coming here, they are completely different approach from us, and they say, guys, okay, you are going in that direction, but this is the way that the young generation should have been thinking about instead. So I'm not saying that every of this idea has been taken into account all the time, but it is very important to have other glasses to look at the reality, not only from our traditional ways of looking at.
Recently, I happened to host an innovation award for Air Liquide. That's an old French industry. They do gas. And they had just what you did. They asked everyone to come up with ideas, and they had a ceremony on 4 continents connected by a satellite. Question to the audience. Who of you had something like an innovation award or an innovation promotion program inside your big company? Oh, some. Okay.
A bunch of people. I mean,
A bunch of people already. Good. So there's hope.
Definitely. There's always hope. Challenging all the time. That's the key words.
Can you influence that, or is that something where you say,
No,
come on,
that's
business,
great.
business is for business, and we can't be responsible for everything with our...
No, we do care about that as well. This is exactly the role we see the large enterprises playing in opening up the so-called innovation clubs. So open innovation clubs, not only within their companies in order to innovate the way they do business, but offering their patents and their research capability to a lot of small and medium enterprises or potential entrepreneurs to join the club and create spin-offs, etc. So this is how we see the whole issue, and we welcome that, we encourage that. However, on the issue of venture capital, if you allow me, Chairman, I would share a few reflections with you. Often people are lobbying us and they say more venture capital is needed in Europe, and I was very curious on this discussion today. And we do give. Just for your information, about 4 billion euros are dedicated for financial instruments, both for loan guarantees and for equity for young enterprises through the normal banking systems and the venture capital systems. However, we ask ourselves, is this enough venture capital money? Is this enough to create a vibrant entrepreneurial environment in Europe? Or do you need more? And as we are talking to our stakeholders, you know, business and academia and large companies, etc., the answer actually is no. Venture capital by itself is not enough. We also have people who say there is enough venture capital in Europe, but there are no good enough foundable ideas, or the regulatory framework is too fragmented in Europe, and that's why businesses go actually on the other side of the Atlantic, which was exactly the case for Prezi. And not because of the lack of venture capital. There are also other people who say we don't need the European Union to give us more money, but we want customers. So those are different reflections that the current system, the startup system, as it is nurtured now, to venture capital, going for a quick exit and profitable exit, which is very good for the investors, but is not necessarily sustainable for the economy, in the sense that it does not create growth and deployment in the long term. Is this something that we would really need to encourage, or what we really need is to create a sustainable culture of, startup is there to serve a business need, and there, what they need they need customers to share their ideas, not necessarily venture capitals which will take them to an easy exit. Having said that, one of the most important issues that have been discussed, apart from the fragmentation of the regulatory framework that we are going to address, is the combination of support services the startups need. So not only money, but money combined with mentoring, with coaching, with support services that will help them overcome all the barriers that are currently there in Europe and help them get access to the real customers, to the real market. That's the way we are thinking about the venture capital market there.
But money is one important thing, because when you try to make business with big companies, sometimes, or it's normal that it lasts 12 to 16, 18 months to get a deal with such a big company, you know. And what's in between? You have to earn money, you know. You have to earn money in between to pay your employees everything, and the time in between is very long. And after that, you get it, and then they ask you, okay, let's make business together, but you are too expensive, yeah, for example. And that's a kind of vicious circle. When you're out of this, when you have built up your client base first time, yeah, then it's great. But to get this starting process done, I think that's the main thing where most of the startups fail then, because they don't have the liquidation, they don't have the money to spend in the growth, yeah.
Achim Berg would like to react.
I think we need to ask ourselves why we don't get the money. There's a reason for it, because quite simple, there's money enough in Europe, you all agree. I think if I don't trust the business, I don't believe in the business, I don't invest. But everybody's searching for investments in Europe as well. There's another reason. We mentioned culture before. You said education. This is something which is another area. Maybe, can I ask the question here?
Go.
Whoever wrote a program or wrote some code in this room here? Oh.
A lot of them.
A lot.
Wow, yeah.
That makes my question, and then I have the other different...
Who of
I
your
thought I expected one or two.
Sure was another one.
There's another one, come on.
Sorry.
That's not fair here.
Who has children who learn to program?
Okay, that's better. That fits better. Thank you.
So you can come back to the
Okay, we
original.
come back to my
Yeah, and you're doing a project with Ranga Yogeshwar.
Yeah, of course, Ranga in the team, he's pushing, he's thinking how we can make our students to learn how to program, how to learn a program language. Everybody's learning Old Greek or Latin or something, not everybody, a few of us. But what is the sense of this? What does it make sense? What everybody needs to understand is how to program. If it is PHP, Java, I don't care, or Ruby or whatever it is, I don't care. But if you understand a program language, and then you can do your own programs, because there's a big change. I started computer science 30 years ago. It was, I had to program something for 6 months, and then the first result came out 6 months later. Today, it's a completely different approach. You start and try and error, and you have, especially an app, for example, an app on a smartphone. You start with it, and even the first program is not really good. It's not doing well. But this is a completely different approach, and this we need to understand. We need to learn how to program and need to create our own ideas, and this is a little bit missing.
There is a projection that in 2020, if we go in this space of ICT, we will be missing in Europe something around 1 billion of people that are able to work in this new society. So we need this kind of education since on now in order to prepare for 2020. Otherwise, we will not be there.
My son is in a lucky position. He went to a German school, a US school, and now he's in a boarding school in the UK. In the German school, the books were like this, all books. In the US, he had only one book, a notebook. There's a notebook, a laptop.
Something in the middle, maybe? Something in the middle?
No, tablet. And in the UK now, he has only a tablet, nothing else. And he's writing on the tablet. There's a huge difference.
Achim, I agree with the programming, but programming is for me not the problem. I am an advisor of a lot of startups. What they need, and this is based in German education, is learning to do business. Planning and behave properly in business, making business, and programming in between every child. Even my wife can do it, which is a compliment for her. The problem is, we will fail if the young people are not educated how to do business. And the second statement is, I disagree a little bit because I feel that focus, maybe I'm too old, so far I'm sensitive. Yeah, startup is not a question of age, it's a question of thinking. And it's a startup for the community. And so far, to focus it only on the young people, it will fail if the old people like me, and I do it, are not able to be advisors as you, Achim, yeah, and to be the mentors because the culture has to change. Then we create startup, and the trend progress must show that the trend is we change thinking, and thinking starts with changing business models and changing education at school. It's not a question of money.
But now, we have to do now that, otherwise in 2020 we will not be prepared.
Of course. So far I am at the moment impatient. Let us not talk, let us do it in the coffee arena and starting.
Thank you. Reaction? No. Okay, quick poll. Who has children?
That's easy one.
Well, that was just a training for the arm. Who admits, if you ask your children what they want to be, who would say, odds are they say, I want to be a model? You don't dare to say that. You don't want to admit it. Who of your kids would say, I want to be a movie star? Who of your kids would say, I want to be a businessman and do my own business? Well, those are the parents. Okay. Should business, in German Geschäft, become a subject matter at school like biology or physics?
Yeah.
In international school, it is a subject matter. Yeah. When you go to the international school, it is a subject matter since from when you are 14 years old.
It depends what it means. If it says you just learned how to do your books or whatever, I don't ask for this one. I ask for programming. I ask for how to entrepreneurship. This is something I need. It's quite important. Yeah. I don't know if it helps. I don't want to look at schools only. It's not only schools and how to teach people. It's a little bit more. But maybe it's one reason. The culture, we won't change the culture in the next 30 years. We never ever change the culture. Maybe we are proud of our culture, even if it's different between Italy and Germany, isn't it?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. But it is not. I don't want to just to call for school and education, but it's a little bit of mixed of everything. But it's interesting here. Everybody says money is not the problem. If you go one floor up, money is a problem because they don't have the money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So where is the truth?
Where's the truth?
Where is the truth?
Okay. Now, I've learned in this hour that more companies would grow in Europe if people were more daring, tried more risks, and were less ashamed when they go bankrupt. There'd be more business if European regulations could be flattened. There'd be more business if creating a business was an idea in the family talk and at school. We need a technical background, I learned. We need more spectrum, I learned, so that all the mobile phones will work. This is what I spontaneously recall from the last hour we've been talking. Now, I would like every one of you to give us a final 1 minute of what does it take? What can every one of us do? Maybe talk to your teachers or whomever to create an environment where more European ICT companies grow. Your final minute. Who wants to go first?
The elevator pitch. You should start.
Euro pitch.
All right, I take it. Okay. You can do a combination, you should do a combination of lots of things. What we think you need in order to succeed in the digital transformation race, and there are roles for everybody, for policymakers, for business leaders, for academia, for everyone, is first of all to assume leadership. So political leaders, business leaders should assume leadership, should believe in that and should demonstrate that and make bold statements about that in order to create momentum at company level, at country level, at European level, whatever. Then you need to bring together different forces. We've heard here today the old economy and the new economy. The traditional.
Why are you looking to me, old economy, by the way?
traditional business and the digital startups, the large corporates and the small corporates. So the academia and all different types of sources. So you bring the different sources together to blend them and create innovation, create more transformation among them. Then you have to pull all the various resources, and I believe that resources exist in Europe. Financial resources, mentoring, coaching, minds are there, but you need to bring them together and harness them to create new growth and sustainable growth. And of course, last but not least, you need a harmonized regulatory framework for which we are going to work in the next 6 months, as I said, at European level to create the single market for digital businesses and services in Europe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kai.
Okay, perhaps I start with my traveling to Berlin yesterday evening. When I came here with the ICE train from Hanover to Berlin, there was a few hundred meters before we went into the central station, there was a big wall painting of our soccer superstar Mario Götze. And under his painting there were the words, risk everything, risk hier alles, was there. I think this kind of mentality we have to push if we want to be successful entrepreneurs. So
Thank you.
First we have to ask ourselves, and the second thing is very important, the education should be more focusing on bringing people to entrepreneurship, not just to be good and successful workers in big companies. You know, that's my 2 main points.
You've got the audience, Valter and then Achim Berg.
Yes.
A minute.
Right, I mean, continuing on the analogy of the soccer, I mean, this is important to understand that we shouldn't go for where the ball is today, but we should go where the ball is coming or is there tomorrow. So we should be just anticipating what is going to be happening. That's because today we are victims as the industry of the short term. We are victims of the quarter. We are victims of the people, shareholders that are coming and say, this quarter I need the money, otherwise it will not fly. So let's start thinking about the horizon. The horizon should be much more long term. So where the ball is, will be, not where the ball is today.
Achim Berg.
First of all, I ask myself, how would I invest as a large company or a private investor? I would invest in people, not in ideas. If I have somebody who really failed 3 or 4 times and he knows the reason why, that's the best person to invest in because he understands how it goes. This is maybe my first reaction. The second one is we discussed how to get more money. I think this is not the question. The question is our culture itself. The question is the education. And the third one is scale. The Chinese and the American companies, they have scale, we don't have scale. Maybe we can get scale, because the language is not the problem. We can get scale if we have maybe a TTIP, I don't know if it helps in the future, but have the same structure, the same tax, the same model all over Europe. That would help a lot to get scale for these smaller startups. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Achim Berg, Eleftheriadou, Valter, Kai Heller. It's been a very interesting talk.